Allow me to share something peculiar about silence in this digital era. We exist in a reality where nearly everything is broadcast: birthdays, coffee, sunsets, laughter, tears, and even sorrow presented through filters. Still, some individuals remain entirely unseen. They browse silently, watch intently, but almost never, if at all, share. Perhaps you even know such a person. Perhaps you are one of them. And this is the question that consistently stays on people's minds. Why? Why would anyone opt to remain invisible when the entire world appears to be crying out for notice? It's simple to presume that those who abstain from posting are just bashful or introverted. However, that isn't the complete story. Underneath it all, there is a whole psychology in effect, one that says so much about humanity, self-awareness, and the silent resistance to a society fixated on being seen. You see, for certain individuals, silence is not a void. It is control. It is the authority to decide what the world is not allowed to see. Because, acknowledged or not, social media has quietly altered how we establish our identities. It values exhibition. It commends loudness. And still, the ones who remain in the background are frequently those who perceive everything with the most clarity. They observe without the urge to interject. They ponder before responding. They evaluate before passing judgment. Researchers in psychology have discovered something intriguing. Individuals who frequently avoid posting often test higher for qualities such as self-control, self-reflection, and emotional autonomy. They are usually less swayed by societal comparison and outside approval. To put it differently, they are not attempting to demonstrate who they are. They are attempting to comprehend it. And in a reality saturated with performances, that is uncommon. Because, frankly, the majority of what we share is not merely communication. It is identity construction. It is a subconscious tryout for acceptance. Each caption, each picture, each update declares, "This is my identity." Do you accept it? But when you cease posting, a change occurs. You start to separate your value from online acclaim. You cease thinking in terms of captions. You begin to live moments for your own sake once more, rather than for a camera. And that is the hidden psychology driving many individuals who abstain from posting. They desire genuineness in an environment where everything seems orchestrated. They do not despise social media. They simply no longer recognize themselves within it. It isn't a matter of being anti-tech or unsociable. It is about declining to condense your existence into a highlight reel. Because once you have witnessed how simple it is to distort perception, you begin to prize what cannot be shared. Quiet, profundity, flaws, honesty. For some individuals, the choice to stop posting follows a form of emotional exhaustion. Perhaps they used to share it all, until a certain day, it ceased to feel genuine. They recognized that each time they shared a beautiful thing, they sensed an unseen compulsion to continue topping it. They were no longer living. They were putting on a show. So they stopped. Silently. No declaration. Simply a gradual fading from the feed. But this is what is frequently misinterpreted. Abstaining from posts does not equal an absence of feeling. It does not mean they are indifferent. It frequently means they care excessively. About being present, about significance, about guarding what is hallowed. A psychological concept exists known as psychological ownership. This is the sensation that something is profoundly yours. A thought, a memory, an experience. And upon posting it, that feeling of possession diminishes just slightly. The moment turns into communal property, liable to criticism, misunderstanding, even ridicule. Thus, people who abstain from posting are frequently protecting their feeling of ownership over life itself. They maintain their moments as inviolable, private, unadulterated. And perhaps that is not melancholy or retreat. Perhaps it is a silent form of liberty. Because consider it. When last did you do something significant and not feel the impulse to broadcast it? When last did you laugh, weep, or accomplish something and not instantly consider posting it? That impulse, that desire to exhibit, is not innate. It is learned. It is the result of a decade of likes, shares, and dopamine cycles teaching our minds to confuse affirmation with worth. And when an individual steps beyond that framework, it can seem like defiance, but it is also restorative. They begin to find again the simplicity of acting for their own sake, preparing food without documenting it, journeying without tagging, experiencing emotion without clarifying it. In that state, something arouses, a type of self-perception that requires no spectators. But not all who abstain from posting do so from a position of tranquility. Some are motivated by fear, the dread of criticism, refusal, or being misinterpreted. Social media has magnified a nuanced type of anxiety researchers term self-presentational pressure. It is the perpetual consciousness that you are being observed even when you are not. And for numerous people, that is draining. They fret that their words could be misinterpreted, or worse, overlooked. Thus, they withdraw, not because they lack a desire to connect, but because the price of being seen seems too steep. They wish to be seen, but only authentically, not shallowly. And paradoxically, at times, the most silent individuals online possess the most clamorous thoughts. They are not empty, they are brimming. They simply select serenity over show. There is a profound philosophical current to that quiet. In a reality that perpetually says, "Watch me," opting for invisibility becomes a method of self-definition. It is declaring, "I exist outside your awareness." They may browse others' lives, agreeing, smiling, occasionally hurting, but they seldom broadcast, as they grasp something many do not. Not all you go through is intended to be seen. At times, the most meaningful things in life, development, sorrow, change, occur silently, unnoticed, unshared. And once you have experienced enough of those personal transformations, you begin to see that being invisible is not identical to being unimportant. It is, in fact, where identity is built, not staged. Herein lies the contradiction. Social media was created to unite us, yet it frequently makes individuals feel more alone than before. When you abstain from posting, you cease pursuing online intimacy and begin reconstructing genuine connections. You start to see who contacts you without requiring status reports. You discover who thinks of you without prompts. That type of bond, unfiltered, unshared, feels more substantial, more comforting, and vastly more authentic. And the individuals who refrain from posting exist in that realm. They cultivate relationships that require no evidence. They find solace in the private moment, and they allow life to happen without converting it to content. A piece of this is also about a secure identity, understanding who you are, even when no one is observing. When you are at ease with your own solitude, you do not require spectators to affirm your value. That isn't haughtiness, it's tranquility. And paradoxically, the very people who abstain from posting frequently have the most fascinating tales to share. But they reserve them for when you are face to face, not screen to screen. Because genuine connection for them is not gauged by comments or likes. It is in mutual quiet, in eye contact, in laughter that requires no audience. These are the individuals who hold worlds inside, who think profoundly, watch perpetually, and comprehend silently. They do not require the world to acclaim their being. They simply need to experience it. And perhaps, just perhaps, in a world so frantic to be noticed, their quiet is not a defect. It is a reflection, a prompt that not all significant things must be broadcast, that at times the most human act is to hold something completely for oneself. Do you know what is intriguing? The longer one remains off social media, the more they start to perceive the world in a new way. Hues seem more vibrant, time feels more measured, discussions feel deeper. It is like moving away from the clamor makes it all genuine once more. Because when you cease performing, you begin experiencing. There is a silent grace in moving through life without requiring evidence of each step. You are not considering angles or light or text. You are simply present, completely alive, within the moment rather than external to it. And that is something social media seldom allows us to do now. But the psychology driving this runs deeper than partiality or preference. It is embedded in how our minds handle affirmation. Each time we share something online and it receives notice, likes, replies, hearts, our brain emits dopamine, the very chemical linked to reward and dependency. In time, we start to desire that affirmation. We begin thinking in terms of post-worthy experiences rather than genuine ones. Now picture someone who defies that cycle, someone who intentionally opts to disengage from the dopamine loop. That is not apathy, that is self-control. It requires self-knowledge to defy something engineered to keep you addicted. Individuals who abstain from posting frequently possess a firm internal locus of control. A psychological phrase signifying their feeling of value and joy originates from inside, not from outside acceptance. They do not require the digital reverberation of "you are enough" to accept it. And this is what is even more intriguing. Research indicates that individuals who take extended pauses from sharing or viewing social media content frequently experience a quantifiable rise in emotional equilibrium and contentment with life. Because when your concept of self is no longer perpetually reflected at you, it becomes firm. It becomes authentic. You are no longer curating your existence into something palatable. You are experiencing it in all its chaotic, lovely, raw intricacy. And perhaps that is the true defiance. To remain complete in a world that values pieces. But quiet online does not always equal tranquility. At times, it conceals weariness. For numerous people, social media turned into a space where they formerly pursued connection, but ultimately felt depleted. There is a nuanced emotional tiredness that arises from observing everyone's best moments while you are still attempting to assemble your own reality. You begin to compare, even when you do not intend to. You begin to doubt your value, even when you are fully aware. And in time, some individuals choose to withdraw, not from resentment, but from self-protection. They recognize they do not owe humanity a show. They do not owe a justification for their quiet, and they do not need to constantly demonstrate they are happy simply to be trusted. That is one of the silent realities of this era. We have mistaken being seen for being important. We presume that to be significant, we must be observed. But true meaning requires no audience. Some of the most significant moments of your existence, those that define who you are, will occur with no one at all looking on. No lenses, no text, no spectators, only you. And perhaps that is what those who abstain from posting comprehend most deeply. They understand that seclusion is not isolation, it is closeness with oneself. Because when you cease transmitting every idea, you begin to listen to your own once more. You begin reuniting with the pieces of you that disappeared in the clamor, your silent wishes, your unvoiced anxieties, your inner guide, and that is something incredibly sacred in the modern world. It is not a retreat. It is a return home. Naturally, it is not always serene. There are phases of uncertainty, of questioning if quiet renders you unseen, if you are lagging behind while all others are broadcasting advancement. But over time, you begin to perceive something wonderful. Your value does not vanish when no one is observing. It remains constant, like the hum in a still room after a tempest. And perhaps that is what genuine confidence is. Not the loud proclamation of self online, but the quiet certainty of self offline. Some individuals ask, if you did not post it, did it truly occur? But the reality is, the things that shape you most seldom reach the feed. Your evolution, your heartaches, your personal triumphs, your quiet gestures of goodness, they exist in recollection, not in media. And perhaps that is sufficient. When psychologists discuss genuine self-expression, they stress congruence. The harmony between your inner self and what you present to the world. But in the era of filters, that harmony is perpetually warped. You start to exist as a rendition of yourself, curated for acceptance. So when someone opts not to post, it could be their method of maintaining congruence, of protecting that delicate truth between their internal and external world. They do not need all to see what they are feeling to confirm that it is real. They do not need to record every sunset to recall how it felt. They live their life fully and silently. And here is the contradiction. Those who live silently often sense life most powerfully. They are not sidetracked by the performance of it. They take in details others overlook. The shift of light on a surface, the hesitation before a person speaks, the echo of distant laughter. They are present. And presence is the scarcest commodity in a world founded on attention. But sometimes that very presence causes them to be misinterpreted. People may describe them as remote, enigmatic, even aloof. Yet if you observe more closely, their silence is not a void. It is profundity. It is the calm that arises from no longer needing to justify yourself to be understood. There is a silent assurance that arises from not requiring universal acknowledgement, just comprehension by a select few. And that is what the people who abstain from posting grasp best. They know that not every truth is intended for the masses, that some elements of you deserve to stay untouched by algorithms and perspectives, because once a thing is made public, it ceases to be purely yours. It becomes subject to interpretation, to criticism, to trend, and maybe some moments are too hallowed for that. So the next instance you observe someone who never shares, do not presume they are concealing themselves. Perhaps they are simply existing. Perhaps they have discovered tranquility in the silent niches of life, the ones not illuminated by the azure luminescence of a display. Perhaps they are the ones who recall what the remainder of us have overlooked. That being invisible does not equal being lonely. That being silent does not equal being void. That at times the most authentic articulation of your identity is quiet. Because ultimately, we are not intended to be shows. We are intended to be human. And the individuals who abstain from posting, they prompt us to remember that. Every silent, raw, wonderfully unseen day.